I wish I could be in Firenze. My big dream, never been to Italy, and it has to be fulfilled one day. And if nothing else, this is the first attempt at it. So thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Martin, beforehand for your amazing talk. And I'm in the sociology anthropology department at SFU, so I'm really looking forward to be talking with you more stuff like this. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you as well. And Agnes MacDonald, Professor MacDonald, is a lecturer in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, teaching a variety of sociology courses. Her areas of expertise are sociological theory, comparative discourse analysis of modernity and post-modernity as well, curriculum development in sociology, faculty engagement in education of social science. So, many thanks again, and now the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Roberta. Here we go. The paper title that I came up with is Social Sciences and the Education of the Social Justice Movement. I've been looking at social justice for a long time now, but I felt that I have come off track. And my students in the past couple of years have been kind of leading me up into a road that I haven't really access yet. So I'm trying to figure out where to go with this whole topic of social justice and the social justice movement. So that's why I wrote this paper, kind of based on my experiences in the classroom, discussions with my colleagues, and just reading up on stuff. All right, let's see what I can say in my introduction about this. The modern concept of social justice emerged in the wake of industrialization and the resulting conflicts between laborers and capitalists across Western Europe in the middle of the 1800s. Ever since then, social science scholars have studied the power to resources, goods, services, and profits in society, and subsequently adopted social justice to refer to the distribution of material rewards and benefits such as housing, wages, medical care, and the like. In France, it was Auguste Comte who outlined the parameters of a new scientific study for societies he called sociology, which was energized by ideologies of social justice, that is, the principle of equality for all before the law. Sociologists today work from Comte's foundational ideas to investigate inequalities in society in such areas as class, gender, race, sexual orientation, ableism, and more. These tenets have gained public claim through the social justice movement during the past 40 years, I would say, at least. Presently, the two most popularized topics of the social justice movement are Black Lives Matter in the wake of the murder of George Floyd in America in May 2020, and transgender rights movement incepted in 1992 by the American activist Leslie Feinberg. I argue that sociology is a major contributor to the social justice movement, which has grown out of the 1960s protest movements of decolonization, civil rights, women's equality, gay rights, anti-war, and more kind of movements, and linked with theories of postmodernity. As a result of these social movements and theories by the 1980s, academic concepts and ideologies had gone into actual practice on the streets, in homes, bedrooms, workplaces, and in the public sphere in general, to understand, include, and most specifically construct context for the voices, everyday lived experiences, and demands of the marginalized segments of populations in North America, Europe, and elsewhere. These groups are part of the project of categorization. As I teach these topics in my sociology classes each year, I notice that more and more students come with a set of truth claims about these subjects and are less interested in taking away nuanced aspects of knowledge and practice. This experience is what makes me ask whether sociology can offer any more momentum for the education about social justice. Let's look at what I really mean by sociology and social justice. From its beginning, sociology has had a dual commitment to fight against social injustice in society while operating as a legitimate academic discipline. Genuine social justice originates in philosophy that advocates a fairer society. For instance, Immanuel Kant's 1798 essay, The Conflict of the Faculties, describes the initial crisis of the modern university and offers a strategy for overcoming it. He imagines the origin of the university as the founding of a distinct parallel society that retains a certain authority over itself, while it reflects the structures of society in general. Within it, the role of the philosopher is to counsel others in matters pertaining to truth. The community model Kant is suggesting is one where the internal conflicts within the university spill over into relations with the public. Thus, his model of the university is one where peaceful conflict can influence the general public. Enter sociology. Two of the earliest sociologists, Emil Durkheim in France and Max Weber in Germany, were deeply influenced by Kant's philosophy. Of course, their education was in philosophy. They initiated paths for sociology to become a genuine context for the promotion of social justice. Emil Durkheim, who lived from 1858 till 1917, is often cited for his text Professional Ethics and Civic Morals, published much later after his lifetime in 1957. This was a collection of his lectures. And this was based on, again, his lectures that he carried out in his Bordeaux University years. I forego this work in favor of illuminating his early efforts of or building sociology into a legitimate discipline. As he wrote, sociology is then not an auxiliary of any other science. It is itself a distinct and autonomous science. Durkheim was teaching, as I mentioned, at the University of Bordeaux from 1887 until 1902. He was actually in charge of teaching students who were going into the teaching program. So he was in charge of teaching young educators to understand society. He, in fact, set out to find a framework for his sociological problematic, the idea of social laws and of the interdependence of social facts, the concept of society as a whole or organism, that is the notion of society's interdependence for consciousness. There is this sense for him to find the idea of social constraint. For his teacher training students, he emphasized the idea of social bonds that hold society together, the baseline structure of communities in his mind. As one of his researcher, Fournier, explains, Durkheim saw his role of both making himself useful by providing an introduction to social science for students, and at the level of population as a whole by educating public opinion. For promoting sociology as a tool to educate, in his first lecture, Durkheim outlines a practical element of his discipline to call for awareness towards the re-establishment of communal bonds. He says, our society must regain awareness of its organic unity. The individual must develop a sense for this social mass which envelopes and penetrates him. He must sense it always near and active. And this sentiment must always rule his contact. I believe that sociology, more than any other science, is in a position to restore these ideas. It is sociology which will make the individual understand what society is, how it completes him, and how little he really is when reduced to his own forces alone. End quote. In here, Durkheim emphasizes the usefulness of sociology to examine and analyze problems that his, for instance, students regularly encountered in their work, including class differences, cultural representations, reasoning, and moral education. By embellishing his lectures with statistical data, ethnographic sources, and historical discourses, Durkheim had set the tone for the sociological problematic to uncover society's consciousness as a social fact. While Durkheim outlined a pedagogical framework in sociology for internal theories to be put to use in external practices which would enable social justice for all, his contemporary in Germany, Max Weber, who lived from 1864 until 1920, so they were really contemporaries without knowing each other. I understand that Durkheim was corresponding with Weber's wife, Marianne Weber, about her paper and sort of second-handedly knew about her husband's, Max's, work. It's interesting how there were interconnections, but not to the degree that we would imagine because of the kind of similar topics they were talking about. That's just a side note. In any case, Max Weber promoted in Germany that sociology should follow the principles of methodological individualism. For Weber, sociology differs from morally charged discourses about politics, arts, science, and the individual's involvement in these things in larger society. Sociologists ought to analyze elements of society through the principle of Wertfreiheit. My German is not the best. I apologize for my pronunciation. That is, it means value freedom. Value freedom grants the kind of objectivity necessary for empirical investigations and academic discourses. As Thomas Campbell explains in his study of Weber's concepts, it is necessary for, the concept of value freedom as the art of speaking sociologically, which is motivated by the criteria of value relevance, that is, Wertbeizung, of recognizing the standards of public importance, cultural significance, and scientific interests that are all shaped by both academia and persons involved in formulating discourses. Weber developed a related methodological concept called Verstehen, or understanding. Verstehen is to be applied for investigating historical ties and stories and for the observation of social phenomena, to include such ideas as meaning-making in their discipline. It is a mode of interpretation without judgment. These theoretical methodologies then enable Weber to examine the taken for granted meanings in everyday life, armed with epistemological tools to cross-check for validity on a scientific basis. The application of Verstehen and value freedom does not assert that sociologists should be ethically neutral, morally indifferent, or apolitical. Rather, that sociologists must demarcate for themselves and by others freedom from ideological pressures, cultural prejudices, and political influences in order to be able to exercise their freedom for the independent scrutiny of inconvenient facts, conflicts, viewpoints, and counterfactual speculations, so as to evoke the need to communicative understanding between scholars and the public. Weber, in his sociology lectures, often reminded his students to take note of the harsh social and cultural realities of their time that render decisions about one's personal calling. In his article called Politics as a Vocation, in fact, it was a lecture series that was later published, he suggests that age is not the decisive factor here. What matters is a trained ruthlessness in peering into the realities of life and the abilities to withstand them and measure up to them inwardly, end quote. There's an element of detachment of Weber's self-conscious social actor from the networks of the real and imagined dimensions of everyday lived experience, something that Durkheim would conceptualize as a social fact. Weber argued that value freedom used by sociologists ought to remain within the scientific domain. However, scholars have a duty to be politically progressive. That is, what I see in Weber's value freedom as a concept of intellectual maturity, which can respond to every new generation's demand to opening themselves to other ways of being, thinking, acting, and speaking. Comparably, Durkheim believed that the science of sociology served a moral and practical function in the reform of society. Durkheim was really convinced that it is the duty of sociologists to heal and reform society from its ails. In conclusion,
sorry, 2 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. In conclusion, I ought to ask, what should education be? At present, it is the social justice movement which is occupying both university and public discourse formation and practices by blurring boundaries, the power of language, cultural relativism, and the loss of the individual and the universal. I propose to seek alternative ways of thinking against the massive pressure to conform to academic concepts about social justice and to public narratives of the social justice movement. And thank you so much for your attention. And I sort of really drilled through here my notes without
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you very much for your presentation. And of course, as well, if there are questions, please open the microphone, type something in the chat, or as well, if you would like to type your email, like your colleagues in the chat, people will be able to contact you if they are willing to ask you something about your presentation.
Absolutely, yes, thank you. I'm open to questions, comments.
I see someone is typing in the chat. Okay.
Yes, we do have many possibilities for changes to be made, and I really hope that sociology will be one of those disciplines again that will kind of be in the forefront of making these changes or making suggestions for these changes. Martin's question, can you reflect on the importance of social justice as a topic beyond social science education? Yes, I think social justice has become very much an everyday topic. It's really out there in the public vernacular, in our public vocabulary. And I'm just a little bit worried that it's taking up a path that it might be misleading the general public, especially young people's way of thinking about themselves and their role and actions in society that could be sort of delusional. So I'm hoping that sociology will remain sort of true to itself and find academic ways to integrate into the public domain to reinvigorate the understanding about social justice, which is not about a particular sort of biased way of finding new kinds of truth about identity politics. I'm just looking for type messages here. Yeah, absolutely. It should infuse every curriculum. And I think that has been sort of going on in the past couple of years now, especially including the topic of Indigenous history in Canada. It's been a big sort of issue for us to figure out how to acknowledge and appreciate and intervolve Indigenous traditions or culture or the existence of Indigenous identity into our everyday curriculum. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I see another participant typing. No more.
No. I don't know.
Okay.
All right,
Maybe,
thank you.
maybe I would like to invite you again to type your email.
Okay, yes, certainly.
Yeah.
It's an underscore here.
Perfect. So every question can be addressed to this email address.
Thank you so much, Roberta, for managing my slides as well. And thank you, everybody, for your attention. I really appreciate the opportunity for being here, and hopefully see you next year in person.
Yeah, on site in Florence. You told you never been here, so we are waiting for you here next summer.
Awesome.
Hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you. Ciao, ciao. I'll stay on the screen. I mean, on the side here, but not on the screen anymore. So I let the next person come over. Thank you.
Your presentation was the last of the day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But tomorrow during the morning from 9 a.m. Italian time, we will have another session about education and social change. So this kind of topics will be there again. So we will continue tomorrow with this very interesting presentation, because every topic in this case is always hot. I mean, you can have so many different opinions regarding one single topic, and we could chat and talk for hours.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it would be wonderful to be just spending a whole summer talking like this and drinking red wine.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
thank you again for your presentation. Thank you, everybody, for being here during this first day of conference, during this session. Thank you for presenting, and also few of you that are now still online helped us today to moderate different sessions. So thank you for the double of the job, and see you tomorrow during the second education and social change, or during our multiplier event in the other virtual room. And see you tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ademani. Ciao, ciao.
Ademani.
Thank you, Andrea and Roberta. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.